ready for your daily download. The digital world is spinning fast. We've got the insights that will last.
The digital downloads on the air. Essential info we love to share.
Yeah, the digital download.
The digital downloads right here.
Oops. Had a bit of fun with Lyria this week. Good afternoon, good morning, and good day, wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to another edition of the Digital Download, the longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live, now globally syndicated on TuneIn Radio through ABTR, the world's #1 business talk, news, and strategy radio network. Today on the Digital Download, we are continuing our deep dive into the mechanics of modern business development. In our last session, we drew the map of the ecosystem strategy. And today we are focusing on the asset you use to travel it, your digital profile. Most professionals treat LinkedIn as a CV. They list their job titles, their internal quotas, and their past awards. But here is the hard truth. Your buyers do not care about your quota. They care about whether you can solve their problems, and we'll talk about that. But before we kick off the discussion, let's go around the set and introduce everyone. While we're doing this, why don't you in the audience reach out to a friend, ping them, and have them join us? We're having fun here. As you know, audience participate. We strive to make the digital download an interactive experience, and audience participation is highly encouraged. Tracy, would you like to kick us off, please?
We are having fun here. This is why I come here at 7 o'clock in the morning, my time. Hello, everyone. I am Tracy Borison, founder of TLB Coaching and Events, a proud partner of DLA Ignite, and I just love me a good theme song. So this is going to be a fun day.
Thank you, Tracy. Adam.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Gray, co-founder of DLA Ignite, and delighted to have Tracy Borison, a proud DLA Ignite partner, and Bertrand Godillo, a proud DLA Ignite partner. We're proud to have you as partners as well. A theme song. Who knew that was going to happen, eh? Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
And we have
you
more.
Guys, all we were told was that Bertrand had a surprise for us today. That's a good surprise.
Really great, really great. So, Tim.
Yes, thank you. Welcome. My name's Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and famous for writing the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers. And Bertrand, do you do requests? Could we hear it again?
Yeah, let's play it on the outro as well.
We could do it again, but I'm
okay.
Let's keep it for the end. We've got another one, but maybe we've got another one just before we finish up. Okay, thank you all. So we're gonna do a bit of whiteboard today, but before we do that, I do have a foundational question, of course. So while listing your internal achievements, like President's Club, actually scares prospects away, and why your experience section must focus on your client's success, not your own. Who wants to take this one? It's a pretty easy one to start, to be honest.
Because no one wants to be sold stuff. So if you're like, look at how good I am at selling, people are going to be like, ooh, I don't want to be sold stuff.
Well, I think it's more basic than that, isn't it? You know, we've got a load of things vying for our concentration and sucking up our time. So if I've got the choice between investing my time reading something that teaches me something or supports a viewpoint that I have or gives me new insights that I've not had before, that seems like a good investment of my time. If I read something which just tells me what you've done, where you've been, what you've won, it's like, how does that help me in any way at all, other than being 5 minutes of my life I'm never getting back? And I think that the challenge is that we kind of come from this background where we have been programmed to believe that if I tell you more about how great I am, maybe you'll start to believe it. But today, it's not the way the world works.
Okay, good
I
start,
also
by the
think,
way.
like, one of the things that came up in our last whiteboarding session too is about showing people things that they can identify with so they can like start a conversation with you. And I think a lot of those achievement things don't really sound like conversation starters. Right? Whereas like I get people all the my about section talks about belonging and how I never felt like I had one place to fit in. So I went and fit in a whole bunch of different places. And I get people all the time that are like, oh my gosh, this is the same experience that I had. So then, like, all of a sudden you have something in common. Whereas, like, a list of achievements doesn't really give you that opportunity. So I think there's lots of reasons.
Sounds like a great start. And by the way, thank you, LinkedIn user. We prefer to have name
What a
user,
start.
but what a start. Thank you so much. Okay, let's get into the whiteboard then. As you must remember, you've got you on one end of the story of the street. You've got your target on the other end. There is a closed door in there. That's what happens usually, and I'm not going to go back to the basics we covered the other day. But what we know is that your target, they do have a profile, they do have friends, and they do publish content. And on your end, you've got a profile. I don't know if we can see it, but that is very serious profile. And this is probably what this is probably
It has a
why.
tie. It has a tie.
I like the hands. I like the hands are like this.
It does have a tie. And what we know, and I'll just make sure that I recall that number, is that 76% of your visitors will stop at your headline. So they will get your invite, look at your name, just below your name, your invite, your headline, your profile headline, and 76% of them will not go any further. Probably because you are very serious. So how can we make that slightly different? We said we want to be approachable. So
just before you continue, Bertrand,
approachable.
I just want to quickly say that LinkedIn, obviously, at the moment, is not collecting stuff from broadcasts effectively into our software here. So it's Wolfram Gronert that left that comment. But also, we've got a couple of comments from Andrew Schlesser, one of them saying good morning, and then a jokey comment about when will the album of that theme song be out. So hello, everybody. Thank you. I'll keep an eye on everyone's profile and see any other comments that we've got, hopefully.
We're working on it. But 76%, we said, of your visitors will read the headline, and then they will make up their mind. And these 76% have made up their mind, and they won't go further. Probably because, so the question is this because you're too serious? There are probably things on your profile that we need to discuss. So I'll start with making you a little bit more approachable. And that is probably step number one, is your photo or your picture, depending on which part of the world you're joining us from. Any experience, anything you would like to share on this? Should we look all very corporate?
I think historically, when you think about it from a resume point of view, you probably think you want that like standard corporate headshot that photographers have been selling a lot of us for a very long time. But even if, like, I love the pressure test just to be like, if someone saw this picture of me, does it look like how I want people to feel when they're in my presence? And if it doesn't, if it looks like it is like putting up a block or it's putting up a facade, then it's not what you want it to be. So while in conversations like this, we might use general words like welcoming. There's different perspectives of that everyone has. So I just always like to say, like, is that picture saying about you what you want the world to know? And if it's not, then perhaps try a different one.
I've always said that it needs to that we've all been for meetings, or we meet someone somewhere and you go, I wonder what they look like. So you bring up their LinkedIn profile, and it's a picture of them with a crash helmet on or something like that. And you go in the coffee shop and there's no one with a crash helmet on. So it's what if you were going to look for the person, have a photo so I can recognize who you are, so I can see you across the room and go, oh, Adam, we're meeting today. And not one of you lying in a gutter on a Friday night with a kebab.
Is that not an appropriate photo?
No, it's not. No.
What if people are meeting you and you look like that?
Okay, so we are clear. We're clear on your photo.
I think though that on the topic of photo, it's so often we see people that have had corporate photos of them taken where they look very smart and a little bit of makeup and hair's been done and they're beautifully posed against a background. And when you meet them in reality, you realize that the person you thought they were going to be is not the person that's in front of you, not just in terms of how they look, but I always think that it's really nice to get a photo of somebody when they're not actually posing for the camera. So maybe they're talking, they're presenting something, or they're talking to somebody, or they're concentrating on something, because then you get a sense of the person rather than just how they look. And I think that every element of this should be managing the expectation of the person that's looking at it. You look like you're really good fun because the photo is of you smiling. Okay, well, that's a really good start, rather than you look like you're really, really serious. And then when I meet you, actually, you're quite lighthearted and entertaining. So I think marrying those two up is really important.
Okay, so authenticity is the key here, I guess. And probably, if you don't have a pro photographer, maybe you can ask your loved ones to take a picture of you. Might be more useful. Okay, so secondly, we said that most people.
Actually, sorry, can I add one more thing about the photo? Because this is something that drives me nuts. When the photo of you is from like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
This also plays into the, like, if I meet you in real life, can I match that up with you? I think it's really important for the age to match. And I know that that's particularly difficult for women as we age, to be like, this is what we look like now, except it just breaks the trust when it doesn't match, right? So just wanted to slide that in.
Yeah, and by the way, it's the same for us, Tracy. Don't worry. Okay, so the second piece that we discussed already, because we know that people stop. Most of them stop here. Actually, 2/3 of them stop here. Is about your headline. So, what should be in your headline? Should that be all about what you're doing, especially if you're in sales? How great you were, how great you are, how great you were, all of your exes. Any recommendation?
Not ex-girlfriends or boyfriends.
I mean, you could include that, but I think we're talking about like ex-Google.
Yeah, ex-Facebook.
Yes, exactly.
I think the thing that is really important here is that you said 76% of people, when they look at your profile, they never go beyond the headline. And the problem with saying head of sales at, or head of marketing at, or head of whatever at, is that it tells me in 5 seconds that I don't need to connect to you or talk to you. because I'm not looking for somebody in marketing. I'm not looking for somebody in sales. I'm not looking for someone that's...
Nobody gets up in the morning and says, I want to talk to a salesperson.
But even if it's somebody in finance, say, it's like, I have no interest in speaking to a CFO, for argument's sake. So if somebody that's a CFO says CFO at, why would I need that person in my network? So I think that the key thing here is to pique their interest enough that they think, I'll read on a little bit. And this idea that, well, you have to tell them in 5 minutes, or in 5 seconds rather, what it is that you do. Most people don't know what they need. They don't know how to build a strong network. So telling them that they don't need to connect to you immediately is not a good plan for anybody.
I think it also, like, there's a important piece of the puzzle from the reverse side of it too. So if you are just, let's say this is your first exposure to anything like this, and you just assumed because LinkedIn auto-populates your last title into your headline, if you don't have a headline, that is what people do. One of the things that feeds from a LinkedIn algorithm point of view is search for salespeople. So if a salesperson is looking to connect with CFOs because they have a fintech product that they're selling, then you've just made it very easy for them to find you. And so I think from a not sales point of view, there's benefit in looking at your headline as well, because who do you want connecting with you on this platform? And if it happens to be a salesperson, what kind of gate do you want that salesperson to go through? Do you want them to care that you could have played Quidditch for England? Maybe if they're like, oh, what? Quidditch, is that a real thing? And then it creates opportunity for the thinking and the conversation, instead of it just being like, this is my title, and salespeople can really easily take that to try to target you.
There's another piece of advice that people give, which is bad advice, which is what people tell you to do is to stuff your headline with keywords. Because there's a belief
and pipes between keywords.
Yes. So for example, it will say author, keynote speaker, ex Facebook, ex Google, and the thing is that when you get this long string of all these things, your eye doesn't read it. So you've got this ability, 76% of people don't read any further. Well, pretty much what you've done is you've stuffed your summary title with so much stuff that nobody will read any further. And the mistake that people make is that the way that LinkedIn searches and the way that Google searches, it sees LinkedIn as basically a complete string of text. So if you do have things that you want people to search on keywords, you can put them anywhere in your profile. You don't have to stuff them in your title. So just thought I'd share that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll take the LinkedIn user comment here because I think it does make sense in what we're just discussing. It may be the difference between an egocentric presentation to one showing how you help others achieve their objectives.
Very true.
Yep.
Of course, yeah. Good comment, and that leads to the next step, because we said, okay, so we now have a photo and a headline that both of them make us approachable. So let's now have a nice, how do we get to the point where, because we discussed that last time around, to the point where we have a nice and attractive window to the world. That's how it looks, by the way. Not sure it's the best representation, but that's
it's a very picture.
How do we make that happen? There's one ingredient here that I'd like specifically to discuss, which is your banner. So the visual part of your the first visual of your profile. So, do we have anything to provide as a recommendation on the way you organize your banner?
I'm sure we have lots of things.
Yeah.
Who wants to start?
I'm a bit surprised, to be honest.
I mean, it should be pretty. It should be something which is eye-catching, and it should be something that is personal to you. Tim and I earlier this week were doing a presentation for an organization, and we used some profile headers from another organization. Basically, although each of the four that we chose were different background images, they were all corporate images, which just makes you look like a clone. And it's like, well, why would you have that image up? Well, because my boss told me to. Whereas a good background image is something that's important to you, something which reflects who you are. It might be that it's a quote or a place that matters to you, or a shot of you doing something out hiking in the hills, but something that relates to who you are as a person, because it's more real estate for you to put your personality into, isn't it?
The mistake that people make is that they think, when I'm talking about marketers and sales leaders think that a person's LinkedIn profile belongs to the company, and it doesn't. It belongs to the person. And as we said really early on, authenticity is the key. So whenever people come along and say you must need to use this banner, which is a corporate one, all that does is it pushes the customer further away, because we're back to we know if someone sends me a connection request and they've got a banner and it says Salesforce, we know the first thing that's going to happen when they send us after a connection request is they're going to say, do you want to buy a CRM? So we don't accept. So anything to do with the company, corporate, or anything like that pushes the customer further away.
And now just to add on to that, from the photo point of view, is that there's a lot of companies now that will have a consistent color behind their employees' profile photos as well. And again, I think from a marketing perspective, people think that means consistency. But I had this experience where there was this white paper that was posted. It had all these comments on it. And I'm like, what's up? The people must be interested in this. But it was all people that had the same yellow background in their picture. And then I was like, oh, this is just the employees liking it. That doesn't really mean anything. And then I moved on, right? So the consumers are getting wise to your quote unquote marketing tactic. And it's much more effective to just let your people be themselves. And I was at a networking event yesterday for the different universities and colleges that are in Calgary. And I had a couple people asking me about LinkedIn banners. And I was like, something that shows you, this is why in Calgary, the #1 banner that people have on their LinkedIn profile is a picture of mountains. Because we are very close to the mountains, but and I say, you know what, if you love the mountains, put a picture of mountains, and anybody else who likes mountains will like you. Because they're like, oh, we have mountains in common. So now I've seen that. Now I have opened the door to being open, at least, to seeing what else there is about you. And it doesn't have to be as complex as we make it. I'd also like to say, from a solopreneur point of view, so people who are solo consultants or running their own business, that a lot of times they feel like they need to make their profile very businessy, so it tells people everything they need to know about my business, and it's just not helpful. It does the same thing as the Salesforce banner. People are just like, oh, this person is trying to sell stuff or run a business on LinkedIn, so now I put my guard up instead of letting your guard down. So anytime you can use any of the visuals, your profile picture and your banner, to help people bring their guard down into the human zone, then that is a good approach.
But also on that point, people write that, a solopreneur, they write something and talk about we, us, as if they're part of this huge conglomerate. I was just thinking, my son and I are watching Better Call Saul at the moment. And, it's this one guy that's a lawyer that answers the phone in a high-pitched voice saying, "Hello, Saul Goodman, how may I direct your call?" And then, "Hello, it's Saul here." And it's like, sooner or later, you are going to disappoint somebody. They're going to come to your office and they're going to see it's you in your spare bedroom. So you might as well set that expectation at the beginning and make a positive out of what you consider to be a negative. You're my most important client, therefore you are going to get first call on my time always, is an incredibly attractive thing for a buyer to hear, isn't it? Rather than you're one of a million people that we work with and you'll have to join the queue like everyone else.
So I was saying that these two actually, well, these three work together, or at least these two.
Yeah, I agree.
So that banner
I
and
would say
headline goes hand in hand, and should be potentially the banner should be the visual representation or a visual proof of what you're claiming on your headline. Although it's going to be difficult for you, Tim.
I mean, with AI now, I saw Tim's mom fighting with a lightsaber, right? I feel like it's easy enough for Tim to put himself on.
Yeah, what a great idea. An AI-generated shot of Tim on a broom playing Quidditch.
I actually have one.
We'll work on it. We'll even have a song for it.
That would be great.
Next time around.
Next week it's Quidditch week. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. What else we said last time around? It would be great to have on your profile when you've got visitors. We talked about your featured content, and I'll put deliberately two types of content here. So your featured content. How should you select that? Is it based on, it was the most attractive, the most reaction generator, the one that got most reactions? Is it something that you would like your visitors to read first? Is it 100% professional, or should that be a little bit of a personal mix as well? Are we on Facebook? Are we exhibitionists if we do that? Whole bunch of questions, and you're welcome to pick it to pick the one you want to answer to.
Yeah, so I feel really strongly about this. I think that let's assume that you create a reasonable amount of content and a reasonable number of things, and you're selecting some pieces to go in that featured content box. The bits that are going to be seen by people, and I think that one of the mistakes that people make is they think after the fact what they could have done but didn't. So, I'm targeting technology, I'm targeting cloud services or cybersecurity or whatever. So if I know the vertical that I'm targeting, it would make sense to make that featured content at least reflect some of what those organizations do. So when they look at my profile, they see stuff that demonstrates that I understand what their challenges are, rather than stuff that is generic or stuff that is unrelated. So if you were a cybersecurity company and you came to my profile and you saw a load of posts about pharmaceuticals, you'd think this is a pharmaceuticals expert, not a cybersecurity expert. So I think that part of this is about reverse engineering stuff, making sure that if you're going to install some parts of your profile, if you're going to write some things, you might as well write those things specifically for the industries that you're targeting, so that it looks like you know what you're talking about. And at least if that's one of the things that determines whether or not you'll take a call with me, there's a chance that you'll take a call. There's no guarantee, but there's a chance you'll take a call if I put those things up, whereas there's no chance you'll take a call if I don't.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
Comments?
I think just to add the things that reflect your unique perspective as well. So like one of the things that we often talk about in terms of content is that you're not just like generating content to generate content, you're generating content with a point of view. And so having that featured content speak very clearly to the problems that I'm here to solve, but also your unique way you do that, your unique perspective on that. And I'm not talking about like a white paper or a like product spec sheet, right? But like your perspective, your conversations, like how are you looking at it? Because one of the most effective things from a marketing point of view is for people to be able to align with your perspective. But if you're not sharing your perspective, then people can't do that. And so if your featured content is like, this is cybersecurity and here's my stance on AI, right? Then people will be like, ooh, and it's actually a perspective, then they can read it, they can see if they align with that. And if they don't, I think from a marketing point of view, people think that that's risky because then people will say, well, what if they don't agree? Well, if they don't agree and you got into a sales cycle with them, you're going to waste so much time in what you think is a sales cycle that is most likely not going to lead anywhere, because not only do you have to get them to buy something, you have to convince them first. Instead of saying like, this is what I think. Oh, you agree with what I think. This is how I help. Would you like me to help you do that? It's a much easier sales conversation. So that clear content with a clear point of view, I think, is one of the things that is important.
Yeah, Adam and I ran a workshop the other day, and one of the exercises we got people to do was to send a connection request. And at the end, one of the people came up to me and said, I sent a connection request. The person looked at my LinkedIn profile and they didn't accept the connection request. Now, so part of your profile is about getting the next step, which is what you want to do is connect with people. If we put ourselves in the buyer's shoes, what we do is that as a buyer is we look at someone's LinkedIn profile and it says, I've just been to President's Club. Well, they're just going to sell me something, or the banner is Salesforce or HubSpot or whatever the other CRMs are available. They're just going to sell me something. The featured content, as you said, Tracy, is a great way of saying, this is how I help people. This is how I serve. This is why I'm central to the to my community. This is and while words community and serve quite often in sales are seen as being not salesy enough, that actually is what your buyer is looking for. They're looking for somebody that's going to help them. And I'm actually going to I'll be salesy for a second and say we have clients where buyers are walking across social media speaking to the salesperson, and then that salesperson is closing multi-million-dollar deals. If you're here is a great opportunity to position yourself, create a conversation, and for people to go, that person can help me. And the featured content is a great way of doing that. And my final point is, please, professional is seen as being, and dull is professional. Don't be dull. Show your personality, not in a just show the person that you serve them and that you can help them.
We have a comment from Jackson. Excellent. Thank you, Jackson.
Thanks, Jackson.
All right. So now my favorite. Let's move on a little bit. But good points on featured content, intention, etc., which I think is obviously key. So here we go. So what's that? That's what I call the coffee machine. Can we talk about the coffee machine and why we need a coffee machine? or why I believe I'll tell you why I believe we need a coffee machine. Because the first thing you do when you meet with a customer the first time is that you go and have a coffee and you have a chat.
Yeah.
So I just think it does make sense to have a coffee machine on your profile.
And what do you mean by having a coffee machine on your profile?
What's your coffee machine? Well, mine is baking bread. This is what I do when I have some free time, and I have countless connections in my network who share the same passion, you could say. And obviously that creates, as you said, Tracy, initially, that creates a different level of, that at least creates something we've got in common. It doesn't mean we're gonna do business together, but we've got that in common. And that is typically what I would call a digital coffee machine. Adam, anything to do with guitars?
Oddly, oddly, yes. And I think your point about the coffee machine is a really good one, because if you say to somebody, "Do you fancy meeting up for a coffee to have a chat? I'd like you to tell me about what it is you do," that's quite attractive. "I'd like to meet up with you for a chat so I can tell you what I do and pitch," is very unattractive. And it's this kind of step-by-step incremental development of a relationship. You don't meet somebody and marry them. It takes time to develop a relationship, and it's the same in business. Very, very rarely, if you're selling something which is expensive, important, strategic, that might sink your career and or the business if you get it wrong, nobody phones up and says, "I'd like to spend $1 million on a CRM system." Nobody phones up saying that. Absolutely, you have to build the trust, build the relationship, and get to know somebody in order that they're prepared to put their trust and their future in your hands.
And talk headsets.
Well, okay, and so I think this is also where we get to, even though we talked about authenticity in the first four, I think there is an opportunity for people to keep it safe in the first four, right? I still control my headline. I still probably have some kind of professional photo, whether it's I like the free flowing ones too, but it's probably been captured as part of an event or something, right? Featured content, I have full control over. When we get to this coffee machine component, I think a lot of people start to worry about what their coffee machine is, and that it has to be scary and deeply vulnerable and these types of things. And one of the things that I always encourage people to look at as part of their, every human has a portfolio of individual preferences that you can share or not share. You don't just have one. And so what is the thing in your portfolio that feels easy to share? Right? I have art, right? Art is one of mine. And I also have nerd things. So anybody who can identify that I have Loki over my shoulder is a friend immediately. Right? These are the types of, but that feels easy for me. It feels easy for me to go out and share art and share nerd knowledge. Right? It doesn't have to be something that's so personal that it feels hard for you to show up and do it. It should be something that feels easy for you to show the world. And even on that, so with Adam, for example, he has his guitars. I don't play the guitar. So you might be like, "Oh no, I don't care about guitars, but I do love music." So then seeing somebody who has guitars makes me think they like music and the guitar is their instrument of choice. Okay? But then that still allows me to make an assumption about somebody. Everyone's going to make assumptions, regardless of what we hope they're going to do or not. And so then I've actually made an assumption that gets me closer to that person. I assume you like music and I like music. So I assume we have something in common about liking music. It may not be the same kind of music. It may not be the same instruments. We may not have the same experience in it, but there's a something. And so this is the point of the coffee machine, is that it's just a something. right? Dogs are great. Mountains are great. Like it doesn't have to be like super strategic or overly complex. It's just a piece of you that you feel is easy to show.
I think it's also worth saying that you need to steer clear of things that polarize people. So if you're talking, if your thing that's important to you is religion, or is politics, or is some world affairs that
Betting.
yeah, stuff where people have incredibly strong views around their belief systems for things, those things are probably best avoided, particularly the way the world is at the moment, where views are so polarized that I assume that because you subscribe to a different viewpoint to me, then everything you stand for is bad. But we'll all have, like you said, you've got the mountains, you've got the low-key memorabilia, I've got guitars, Tim's got travel, Bertrand's got bread. These are things that at the very worst that happens is people go, I don't really care about guitars. Okay, well, that's fine. You're allowed to not care about guitars, but nobody will hate me because they play the saxophone and hate the guitar.
I think that, just to add my point. So whenever we meet somebody, we always try and find something that we have common. There's some commonality. So if we think about the way that when we meet somebody in say a networking environment, how far did you travel? Where did you travel from? All of those, we ask those questions because we're trying to find that element of commonality. If we like guitars, like travel, or like nerdy things or whatever, that immediately gives that commonality, which means we're taking that step down the path of knowing, liking, and trusting somebody. And the thing is that what we will remember is I won't remember Adam's name. I will remember there's that guy who plays the guitar. What's his name? And I remember those things. And that's what you want, is you want yourself to be remembered for the right reasons. And the fact that I know that I have this commonality, we don't ever say I have commonality with Adam. We just know that it's a feeling inside us. And then we'll remember him or her, and we'll go out and search for that person based on what that is. So it's so important that don't overthink it, but it is so important that we have that on our profiles, because this should be working hard for us. This should be selling for us, selling in inverted commas, when we're asleep. And having that commonality and having all of these things that we've talked about, people come across it and go, that guy looks okay, or Tracy looks really interesting. I think I'm going to connect with her, because she's not going to try and sell me anything. I might learn something from her. We connect people nowadays. Social media has changed. We don't connect to people particularly for friends and family. What we do is that we connect to people because we want to learn from people. It's about an information thing. I connect to Brian Solis because I know my life is going to be better for it.
So does that mean that if we do all of these stuff, we get into the 24% that get acceptance? So you pass the exam and end up in the third that gets at least that your target will open, or your target network will open your profile and potentially accept your invite when it gets to that. Are we saying that these are the mandatory stuff that you should be looking for, or at least that you're increasing your chances if you do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. I think it's worth saying you can't guarantee that someone's going to look at your profile. They might look at my profile and say, I don't like bald men. They might look at Tim's profile and say, I don't like bald men. And they might look at yours, Bertrand, and say, he's not bald, therefore I'll connect to him or read more of his profile. It's kind of like you can't legislate for how somebody will behave, but you can put your best foot forward, can't you? You can project the thing that you want people to know about you and make yourself look as interesting, friendly, helpful, kind, approachable as you can possibly be. So you're maximizing the chance that they'll read on.
And at the workshop we did, the sales leader said he has a direct correlation between how central somebody is to their network. So how essential a salesperson is to the customers and the network they serve, and the amount of business they sell.
Yeah,
does make sense. I think we've got an example. Tim, Adam, I think you have an example you want to share.
Yeah, I can certainly.
Let me do that for you.
Ah, fantastic. So we are quite closely associated with the ISP, the Institute of Professional Sales. We're a partner of theirs. They have accredited our social selling program. We deliver webinars for them, and we are part of their infrastructure. And we're doing some consulting with them at the moment. And Ashley is one of their account managers. And what's interesting about him is that he's demonstrated phenomenal bravery in this. So he's a very good account manager and he's a very skilled salesperson. But before we had worked with them, his profile looked like everybody else's profile. I think it's fair to say, isn't it, Tim? You know, it was instantly forgettable. Nothing about it you'd look at and go, oh, I don't like him. But you'd look at him and he would just be one of many people that appeared that way. So he has absolutely taken on board this idea. So it's a friendly photo of him. You know, his face as it appears there is exactly as he is. You can see the kind of person he is from looking at that photo. Nice, interesting background image. Fantastic headline. Better in conversation than on paper, because it's self-deprecating. It's there's no arrogance in that at all.
I smile every time I read it. I smile.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just think so. This is my first time seeing this profile, and I'm like, oh, me too.
Yeah.
Conversation.
You immediately drawn to him.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the key thing, isn't it? You know, this is removing rather than putting up barriers, and his whole profile continues in this vein. You know, he's got a great about section which tells about, you know, if things had panned out differently, what he would be doing with his life. His work history tells a really interesting story, and it's a story. It's not a selection of bullet points about where he's been, what he's done, what he's achieved. And his featured content shows him doing what it is that he does and the stuff that he's interested in. And what's great is it gives so many touch points, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's the photo of him standing up on the stage, which I think is important because it shows a gravitas. Yeah. The conclusion that I jump to when I see the photo of him up on stage is that he is a good communicator standing up.
Yeah. So anybody watching, certainly connect to Ashley. He shares some great content. He's a really lovely guy, and he won't pounce on you and try and sell you something if you don't want to be sold it. But looking at his profile, it's a great example of what a good profile should.
So can you open up some of the job? Because the great thing about this is that we've not really talked about this part of your profile. But a lot of people, what they write is about their objectives or
their achievements.
He's saying here about how he helps people. Now, there's nothing wrong. You know, this is in effect where you can sell because this is where your job description. If you're in sales, well, I sell to people, but selling is about helping.
And I think one of the things that I love about the DLA social selling program is about how do we make our profile our story, right? Mm-hmm. Like how is this a story? And it's very different to read. I don't know. I think there's not a lot of people who will read like all of your experience. Like I have all of my experience on my profile. That's a big investment from somebody. I'm not expecting them to read it. But as Tim mentioned, it's great for keywords. But one of the things I love to use it for is like, what is the thing that was important to me in this job? Like most of us do a lot of things in a job, right? And you can write a list of all those tasks and it might serve you from a keyword point of view. but what mattered to you? How did you help somebody? What was the thing that you took from that job and you built on in your next job? When you look at this as like the story of your experience instead of a resume, because that's specifically what we're talking about today, there's a different way that you, in doing that exercise, start to identify with your experience. It allows you to speak about it differently. It allows you to see the things that are your unique perspectives that can enable you to create content in a more profound way. There's a lot of benefits of looking at our profile as our story, and instead of just a list of things. And this is, you can continue, you could do that. I did it all the way through all of my experience and my volunteer experience and my school stuff. I like took it and like did it.
I think that's really important. So I've just pulled up Tim's profile, and I think, you know, some of the advice you'll get is that if it's more than 5 years old, there's no point in having it on there, which is utter nonsense. Because Tim's first job was working in the kitchen at the Royal Oak Public House in Upton, Snodsbury. Mm. And I think what's really funny is that yes, in our first jobs, we learn a lot about how the world works and how to navigate the kind of the corporate or the working environment. But I think what's really interesting is every one of these you put on gives you a potential touch point. Yeah. So, you know, Tim's biggest ever client might come from somebody that said, "Oh my gosh, you used to work at the Royal Oak? I used to go in there every Friday night." And then all of a sudden you're like, you've got this connection a long way back. So you must be a good guy. And I think that often this is overlooked. And, you know, Tim had a dreadful first job. I had a dreadful first job. We all had a dreadful first job, because that's the nature of first jobs. And I think that's a bond that everybody shares, isn't it?
One of the examples that Adam always gives is that, you know, is to be authentic when you write, and to be brave. So that may be, you say, when I did this job, it was the first time I was actually a leader. I just got promotion, and it was really scary. I hadn't been trained, you know, and it, you know, this happened and this happened and this, but then this happened, and then, you know, I went on this training course and or whatever it was, and, you know, classic story, which is, you know, something bad happens, then and I turn it around, and because people will read that and go, that's exactly what happened to me when I was first line manager. I got just thrown in at the deep end. And you know, and I now feel a connection to you. So it took me 6 months to convince my partner to write on her profile the fact that she got made redundant from IBM. Now, lots of people get made redundant. The only difference was that she was working 3 days a week because she had a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. Her husband at the time had a stroke at 39, and she was his full-time carer. That immediately everybody, now the fact that you've got a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, anybody who's got children will go, I empathize and sympathize with you because you've just been made redundant. She was the person that was basically the breadwinner. That, as you can imagine, but that is a great story about where I go, buddy, what did you do? And that's how you bring, what you're trying to do is bring people closer to you and have that commonality, rather than pushing them away saying, I just want to pitch to you and sell to you.
Yeah.
That was a great session today. Thank you. Thank you, team. Thank you, Tracy, Adam, and Tim. Don't forget that we have our newsletter. So if you want to get some feedbacks on this session and insights on our next session, please flash the QR code on screen or visit us at digitaldownload.live. And I will not leave you without a little bit of a dance. So have a great weekend, everyone, and see you next time.
Au revoir.
If people are going to dance, can we get pictures of?
Ready for your daily download. The digital world is spinning fast. We've got the insights that will last.
essential info we love to share.
Yeah, the digital download.
The digital download's right here.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody.